Commander Jinwoo's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the holographic display floating in front of him. The space station New Seoul hummed quietly around him, its massive metal corridors filled with the sound of boots running and voices shouting orders. 3 hours had passed since the alien message arrived, and everyone knew what it meant. The blue light from the display made Jinwoo's face look pale. He had been preparing for this day his entire military career, but now that it was here, he felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Behind him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, their fingers flying over keyboards and touchscreens. "Sir, we have the full analysis ready," Lieutenant Yuna called out from her position near the main computer banks. Her voice was steady, but Jinwoo could hear the tension underneath. She had been his communications officer for 3 years, and he knew she was scared too. Yuna pulled up another screen showing the alien fleet. 47 massive ships hung in the darkness of space like sleeping giants. Each one was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could turn entire planets into floating rocks. The ships had a strange beauty to them, all curves and glowing lines, but Jinwoo knew they were built for one purpose: destruction. "Energy readings are off the charts," Yuna continued, pointing to the red numbers scrolling across her monitor. "Their main guns could crack a moon in half. Shield strength is incredible too. By all normal standards, we shouldn't stand a chance against them." Admiral Minho walked over to join them, his heavy boots echoing in the command center. At 62 years old, he had seen more battles than anyone else on the station. His gray hair was cut short in military style, and his dark eyes held secrets that few people knew. He had spent the last 30 years preparing Earth for this exact moment. "Show me their formation patterns," Minho said quietly. The display changed. To show how the alien ships were arranged, they formed a perfect diamond shape, with the largest ship at the center. It was exactly what Earth's military analysts had predicted after watching the Zephyrian Empire destroy other worlds. Captain Hyunwoo stepped forward from the weapons control station. He was younger than the others, only 35, but he had trained his entire life for space combat. "Admiral, their positioning matches every other conquest we've recorded. They always start the same way, big show of force, then demands for surrender." Minho nodded slowly. For decades, humanity had been watching the Zephyrian Empire sweep across the galaxy like a plague. They would arrive at a world, show off. Their weapons demand complete surrender, and then either accept submission or destroy everything. It had worked on nearly 1,000 different planets. "They don't know we've been studying them," Minho said, almost to himself. "Every battle, every tactic, every weakness. We've had spy drones following their fleets for 20 years. The alien ultimatum played again on the main screen. The creature speaking looked like a giant insect wearing armor. Its voice was harsh and clicking, translated by computers into human language. "Primitive species of the third planet, you will submit to Zephyrian rule or face total annihilation. You have 6 of your planetary rotations to decide." Jinwoo felt anger rising in his chest. These aliens had no idea what humanity was capable of. They saw Earth's cities and ships and thought they understood everything about humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Captain Hyunwoo, open a channel," Admiral Minho ordered. His voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge could feel the power behind it. The communication system crackled to life. Minho stepped in front of the main camera, his hands clasped behind his back in perfect military posture. When he spoke, his words were clear and simple. "This is Admiral Minho of Earth's United Defense Council. We have received your ultimatum. Here is our response. We suggest you reconsider your approach. Turn around and leave our system immediately. This is your only warning." The message was sent across space toward the alien fleet. In the command center, nobody spoke. They all knew this was the moment that would decide everything. Either the aliens would listen and leave, or humanity would have to show them why Earth had survived when so many other worlds had fallen. Somewhere in the darkness between planets, Admiral Vexthar received the human message aboard his flagship Dominator. The alien commander's insect-like face twisted into what his species called a smile. In his mind, these humans were just another weak species about to be crushed. He had no idea that humanity had been waiting for him. Admiral Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. His forearms moved gracefully as he adjusted the controls, his insect-like eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with the smooth efficiency that came from conquering world after world. The Zephyrian Empire had been unstoppable for 3,000 years. Every species they encountered followed the same pattern: first fear, then desperate attempts at negotiation, finally complete surrender or total destruction. Vexithar had personally led the conquest of 63 different worlds, and not once had any species given him real trouble. "Admiral, our sensors are picking up their technology levels," reported his tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian whose green shell still showed the bright colors of youth. "The readings are disappointing. Nuclear weapons that are centuries behind our plasma cannons, fusion drives that barely push their ships at the speed we consider slow." Vexthar's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. "And their defenses? Basic kinetic barriers, sir. No energy shields at all, no gravitic weapons, no quantum disruptors, no temporal manipulators. By our standards, they're practically using stone tools." The Admiral moved to the main viewing screen, where Earth hung like a small marble against the black of space. It looked so peaceful, so helpless. White clouds swirled over blue oceans, and he could see the lights of cities twinkling on the dark side of the planet. "How long until we reach optimal firing position?" he asked. 4 hours, sir. Should we begin with the standard demonstration?" Vexithar nodded. The demonstration was always the same. Destroy something impressive but meaningless. Show the primitive species what real power looked like. Then watch them beg for mercy. It had worked on every single world he had conquered. "Target those large asteroids between the 4th and 5th planets," he ordered. "Make sure the humans can see the explosions from their homeworld." The main guns of the Dominator charged up with a low humming sound that vibrated through the entire ship. Energy readings climbed higher and higher until they reached levels that could crack a small moon. Then, with a flash of brilliant white light, the weapons fired. The asteroids didn't just explode. They simply vanished, turned into clouds of glowing gas that spread out across millions of kilometers. The light was so bright it could be seen from Earth without telescopes, a clear message of what would happen if the humans continued to resist. Far below, on Earth's surface, in a command bunker buried deep beneath the city of Seoul, General Do-Yun watched the light show through his underground facility's sensors. The concrete walls around him were thick enough to survive a direct nuclear strike, but he knew that wouldn't matter if the aliens decided to glass the entire planet. Around him, dozens of officers worked at computer stations that showed information the aliens couldn't imagine. Troop movements, weapon deployments, and most importantly, ship positions that the Zephyrian sensors couldn't detect at all. "Impressive firepower," Do-Hyun said calmly, as if watching someone light a candle instead of seeing weapons that could destroy cities. "Colonel Jisoo, give me a status report on our Ghost Fleet." Colonel Jisoo looked up from her tablet, her fingers still moving across the screen as she coordinated with units scattered across the entire solar system. She was one of the few people who knew the full extent of humanity's preparations, all. "Stealth ships are in position and holding," she reported. "The cloaking systems are working perfectly. 17 vessels hidden in the asteroid belt, 12 more positioned behind the gas giant's moons, and our ace in the hole is still parked inside the solar corona where their sensors can't reach." Do-Hyun nodded. Humanity had spent 40 years developing technology specifically designed to hide from alien detection systems. Every ship in their shadow fleet was invisible to Zephyrian sensors, waiting for the right moment to strike. "What about the Omega protocols?" he asked quietly. Jisoo's expression grew more serious. The Omega protocols were humanity's final card, weapons so devastating that they had hoped never to use them. "All systems are armed and ready, sir. We can activate them with your authorization code." Up in space, Admiral Vexthar was growing impatient. He sent another message to Earth, this time including video footage of the asteroid destruction. The images showed massive chunks of rock being turned into nothing but light and gas. "Humans of Earth," his translated voice boomed across every communication channel on the planet, "witness the power of the Zephyrian Empire. Your primitive weapons cannot protect you. Surrender now, or your world will share the fate of these asteroids." The human response came back almost immediately, faster than before and with even fewer words. "Last chance. Leave now." Vexithar's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of growing anger in his species. In all his years of conquest, no primitive species had ever been this stubborn. Most civilizations were begging for mercy by now, offering tribute and complete submission just to survive. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "should we try one more demonstration? Perhaps destroy one of their moons?" "No," Vexthar hissed, his forearms moving in aggressive gestures. "Enough games. These primitives think they can challenge the might of our empire. It's time to teach them the price of defiance. All ships, prepare for full assault. Target their cities first. I want them to understand what happens when you ignore the Zephyrian Empire." Deep underground, General Doyan heard the alien transmission and allowed himself a small, cold smile. The aliens had made their choice. Now humanity would show them exactly why Earth's warning had been an act of mercy. The silence in space was broken by the roar of engines as hundreds of Zephyrian fighter craft screamed toward Earth's defense platforms. Admiral Vexthar watched from his command ship, expecting to see the usual pattern: desperate defensive fire, panicked retreat, and quick surrender. What he saw instead changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. Captain Sunho sat in the cockpit of his fighter, watching the alien ships approach like a dark cloud against the stars. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was beating fast. Behind him, strapped to his ship's hull, were enough antimatter charges to power a small city. He wasn't planning to use them against a target. He was planning to become the target. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Sunho," he said into his radio, his voice calm despite what he was about to do. "Remember what we trained for. Remember why we're here. For our families, for our children, for Earth itself." The other pilots in his squadron responded with simple acknowledgements. They all knew the plan. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they would never see home again. Sunho pushed his engines to maximum power and aimed his fighter directly at the center of the alien formation. The Zephyrian ships were massive, each one larger than Earth's biggest buildings, but they were also slow and confident. They didn't expect a tiny human fighter to pose any real threat. "For Earth," Sunho shouted into his radio as his ship slammed into the side of a Zephyrian cruiser. The antimatter explosion lit up space like a small sun. The alien ship didn't just take damage, it simply ceased to exist, along with two other cruisers that were flying too close. Where there had been 3 massive warships, there was now only expanding gas and twisted metal. Aboard the Dominator, Tactical Officer Kreltox stared at his instruments in complete shock. His readings showed that a single human fighter had just destroyed 3 of their capital ships. That should have been impossible. "Admiral," he called out, his voice shaking, "the humans, they're not trying to win dogfights. They're using their ships as guided missiles. Direct collision courses with our largest vessels." Vexthar turned to look at the tactical display, his 4 eyes widening as he watched more human fighters diving straight into his fleet. Each explosion took out multiple alien ships, and the humans showed no sign of stopping. Lieutenant Minji led the second wave of human pilots, her fighter loaded with the same antimatter charges that Sunho had used. She watched her friend disappear in a ball of light and felt a cold determination settle over her. "Dragon Squadron, follow my lead," she said into her radio. "Make every shot count." Her squadron dove into the alien formation like meteors falling from heaven. The Zephyrian ships tried to shoot them down, but the human fighters were small and fast, darting between energy beams and missile trails. One by one they found their targets and turned themselves into weapons of mass destruction. The aliens had never seen anything like it. In every other conquest, enemy pilots had tried to survive. They fought to protect themselves first and damage the enemy second, but these humans seemed to view their own deaths as just another tool to be used in battle. "What kind of creatures are these?" Admiral Vexithar whispered, watching his carefully organized fleet formations crumble under the suicide attacks. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost more ships than in his previous 3 conquests combined. Down on Earth's surface, the battle was just as fierce and just as shocking to the alien invaders. Sergeant Tae-hyun crouched behind the wreckage of a burned-out car in what had once been downtown Sydney. Around him, his soldiers fired their weapons at the advancing alien troops, but they were badly outnumbered. The Zephyrian ground forces moved like giant insects, their chitinous armor reflecting the light from burning buildings. They carried weapons that could melt through steel and moved with the confidence of a species that had conquered dozens of worlds. "Sergeant, we're surrounded," called out Private Young-ho, reloading his rifle behind a concrete barrier. "They've got us pinned down from 3 sides. Tae-hyun looked around at his remaining soldiers. There were only 8 of them left from the original squad of 20. The aliens were closing in and there was nowhere to run. In any normal battle, this would be the moment to surrender, but Tae-hyun had no intention of surrendering. "Corporal Hyun," he said calmly, as if he were ordering. "Lunch instead of preparing to die. Arm the fusion charges. Set them for maximum yield." Hyun nodded without hesitation. She had been carrying the portable fusion device in her backpack, waiting for exactly this moment. Her fingers moved quickly over the activation controls, setting the timer for 30 seconds. "If we're going down," Tae-hyun said, checking his rifle one last time, "we're taking as many of them with us as possible. Make our families proud." The explosion that followed could be seen from orbit. The fusion charge didn't just kill Tae-hyun's squad, it vaporized 3 city blocks and took out an entire battalion of alien troops. Where there had been a fierce ground battle, there was now only a smoking crater. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, a group of surrounded Marines detonated their ammunition depot rather than let the aliens capture it. In London, fighter pilots crashed their damaged planes into alien landing ships. In New York, civilians threw themselves at alien soldiers with improvised explosives strapped to their bodies. The Zephyrian forces had conquered world after world by relying on other species' desire to survive. They offered harsh terms of surrender, but they always offered surrender as an option. Most intelligent species chose life as slaves over death as free beings. Humanity was different. They had looked at the choice between slavery and death and chosen a third option, taking their enemies with them into the grave. It was a kind of warfare that the galaxy had never seen before, and it terrified the aliens more than any weapon could have. Admiral Vexthar watched his invasion force crumble and realized he was facing something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. A species that considered death acceptable as long as it served a greater purpose. These humans weren't just fighting for victory. They were fighting for something much more dangerous. They were fighting for an idea. Admiral Vexthar stood frozen on his bridge, watching his tactical screens show impossible readings. For 6 long hours, his mighty fleet had been fighting what should have been primitive humans with basic technology. Instead, he was watching his forces get systematically destroyed by enemies who seemed to care nothing about their own survival. His computer systems kept flashing error messages. Every tactical program the Zephyrian Empire had developed over thousands of years was based on one simple idea. All intelligent species wanted to survive. They would fight when they had to, retreat when they were losing, and surrender when defeat was certain. It was logical, predictable, and it had worked on nearly 1,000 different worlds. But these humans broke every rule. They turned their own ships into weapons, used their soldiers as living bombs, and seemed to view death as just another tool in their arsenal. Vexthar's computers couldn't calculate strategies against an enemy that didn't follow basic survival instincts. "Admiral," his science officer called out, his voice cracking with panic. "We're picking up massive energy readings all over the system. Huge power signatures just appeared from nowhere." Vexthar turned to the main display, his 4 eyes widening in disbelief. The tactical screen was lighting up like a festival display, showing dozens of new contacts appearing throughout the solar system. Ship after ship materialized as if they had been created from thin air. "Where did they come from?" he demanded. "Unknown. Sir, our sensors show they were just hidden. Somehow they made themselves invisible to our detection systems." Behind Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, a sleek human warship called the Incheon's Blade, suddenly became visible. Its captain, Jihoon, had been waiting in the moon's shadow for over 3 hours, his ship's engines cold and silent, to avoid detection. "Shadow Fleet, this is Jihoon," he spoke into his communication system. "All units, execute Protocol 7. The gloves are off. No survivors." Across the solar system, dozens of human ships revealed themselves at exactly the same moment. They had been hiding in asteroid fields, behind planets, and even inside the blazing corona of the sun itself. Each ship was equipped with stealth, technology that the aliens had never encountered before. The Zephyrian Empire's sensors were designed to detect energy signatures, metal compositions, and movement patterns. But humanity had spent decades developing materials that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them, engines that produced no detectable heat signatures, and hull designs that looked like empty space to alien instruments. Captain Bowman commanded, a stealth cruiser that had been waiting motionless in the asteroid belt for 4 hours. His crew had been breathing recycled air and eating cold rations to avoid creating any energy signature that might give them away. "Weapons hot," he ordered as his ship powered up its main guns. "Target the enemy formation's left flank. Let's show them what real firepower looks like." The human ships didn't just attack, they unleashed weapons that the Zephyrian Empire had never seen before. From hidden bases on asteroids and moons, humanity launched projectiles that accelerated to incredible speeds, moving so fast they were like bullets made of pure light. These relativistic kill vehicles didn't need explosive warheads. At the speeds they were traveling, even a small piece of metal had the destructive power of a nuclear bomb. When they hit the alien dreadnoughts, the massive ships didn't just explode. They turned into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Admiral Minho's voice crackled across every human communication channel in the solar system. From his command post on the New Sol station, he watched the battle unfold exactly as humanity had planned it for decades. "All units, this is Admiral Minho," he said, his voice cold and determined. "The enemy was given a chance to leave peacefully. They chose war instead. They were warned. Now we finish this." Lieutenant Commander Su-Yung sat in the control room of her ship, the Busan Rising, watching her tactical display track the alien flagship Dominator. She had been waiting for this moment her entire career. "Deployment system armed and ready," she reported to her crew, initiating release of Package 7. Package 7 was humanity's most terrifying secret weapon, a cloud of microscopic robots, each one smaller than a grain of sand, but programmed with artificial intelligence that could learn and adapt. The nanobots were designed for one purpose: to consume enemy ships from the inside out, breaking them down molecule by molecule. The invisible cloud drifted toward the Dominator like a gentle breeze. The alien ship's sensors couldn't detect something so small, and their shields were designed to stop energy beams and large projectiles, not microscopic machines. "Contact with target confirmed," Su-Yung announced, as the nanobots reached the alien flagship. Beginning molecular disassembly process. Aboard the Dominator, Admiral Vexthar suddenly noticed that his ship's hull was developing strange spots, areas where the metal seemed to be dissolving like sugar in water. The spots spread rapidly, growing larger and deeper with each passing second. "What's happening to my ship?" he shouted at his engineering officer. "Unknown, sir. The hull is being consumed by something, but our sensors can't identify what's doing it." The nanobots worked with terrifying efficiency. They didn't just damage the ship. They turned its own materials into more nanobots, spreading through the vessel like a technological plague. Within minutes, the most powerful warship in the Zephyrian fleet was dissolving into its component atoms. Captain Woongjae, commanding the stealth destroyer Seoul's Thunder, watched the alien formation break apart under humanity's coordinated assault. "All ships, maintain firing patterns. Don't let any of them escape to warn the rest of their empire." The battle that the aliens thought would be over in hours had turned into a massacre. The Zephyrian Empire's mighty fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds without serious opposition, was being systematically destroyed by humans who had been planning this moment for 40 years. Admiral Vexthar looked around his dissolving bridge and finally understood the truth. The humans hadn't been primitive at all. They had been pretending, studying their enemies, and preparing for war while appearing weak and helpless. The warning they had sent wasn't a threat. It had been mercy. And now that mercy was over, Admiral Vexthar felt the cold metal floor of his bridge pressing against his back as he lay dying. Around him, the once mighty Dominator was falling apart piece by piece. The nanobots had eaten through most of the ship's hull, and atmosphere was leaking out through thousands of tiny holes. His breathing was shallow and painful, but his mind was crystal clear for the first time in hours. The holographic displays still flickered weakly above him, showing the complete destruction of his fleet. 47 capital ships had entered this system with absolute confidence. Now only 3 battered vessels remained, their engines damaged and their crews in panic as they limped toward the edge of the solar system. Through his fading vision, Vexthar could see a communication screen showing a human face. The man wore the uniform of Earth's Defense Force, and his expression was calm but cold. This was Captain Jae-hyun, speaking from his command ship to the few Zephyrian survivors. "This is Captain Jae-hyun of the Earth Defense Force," the human said, his voice carrying clearly across the void of space. "You ignored our warning. We offered you the chance to leave peacefully because we knew exactly how this would end." Vexthar tried to focus on the human's words. Even as he lay dying, he needed to understand what had happened. How had his invincible fleet been destroyed so completely? How had these supposedly primitive creatures turned the table so dramatically? "We studied your empire for 37 years, Jae-hyun continued, and each word hit Vexthar like a physical blow. "We mapped your weaknesses, analyzed your tactics, prepared countermeasures for every weapon in your arsenal. We could have destroyed you the moment you entered our system." 37 years. The number echoed in Vexthar's failing mind. That meant the humans had been watching the Zephyrian Empire since before his own military career began. They had observed every conquest, recorded every battle strategy, and studied every technological advantage his people possessed. While the Empire had been confident in their superiority, humanity had been learning. They had watched the aliens destroy world after world, taking detailed notes on every tactic and every weakness. The humans had turned the Empire's own success against them. On Earth, Major Seojun sat in the underground command center, monitoring communication channels across the galaxy. His job was to track how news of the battle spread to other alien civilizations. What he was hearing made him smile grimly. "General Do-hyun," he called out to his commanding officer, "we're intercepting panic transmissions from Zephyrian outposts. Throughout the sector, word is spreading fast. Other species are already hearing about what happened here." The communications equipment picked up fragments of alien languages, all being translated by Earth's computers. Fear was evident in every transmission. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for centuries, had been completely defeated by a species they had considered primitive. "The Regelians are pulling back their border fleets," Seojun reported. "The Centauri Republic is cancelling their expansion plans. Everyone's suddenly very interested in avoiding human space." Back on the dying flagship, Admiral Vexthar's thoughts drifted to that first human transmission. Admiral Minho's calm voice echoing across space. "We suggest you reconsider your approach. Turn around and leave our system immediately. This is your only warning." At the time, it had seemed like empty bravado from a species facing inevitable destruction. Now, with his final breaths, Vexthar understood the truth. It hadn't been a threat at all. It had been an act of mercy from a species that could have annihilated his fleet without warning. The humans had possessed the technology and strategic advantage to destroy the Zephyrian ships the moment they entered the solar system. Their stealth technology, their devastating weapons, their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. All of it could have been deployed immediately. Instead, they had offered the aliens a chance to leave in peace. Captain Jae-hyun's transmission continued, now directed at the 3 surviving Zephyrian ships as they fled toward deep space. "We want you to understand something before you leave. Earth didn't warn you because we were afraid. We warned you because we knew what we were capable of, and we hoped to avoid showing you." Lieutenant Chang-wook, monitoring the fleeing alien, ships from his position aboard the stealth cruiser Gwangju's Revenge, shook his head in amazement. "They're broadcasting surrender signals on every frequency they can find. Complete, unconditional surrender." "Too late for that," replied his captain. "They made their choice when they ignored our warning." The final human transmission followed. The retreating Zephyrian vessels, as they desperately tried to escape the solar system. Captain Jaehyun's voice was broadcast on frequencies that would carry across the galaxy, ensuring that every alien civilization would hear humanity's message. "Tell the galaxy what happened here," he said, his words measured and deliberate. "Tell them that humanity offered mercy once. We rarely offer it twice. Any species that enters our space with hostile intent will face the same fate as your fleet. In time." The weeks that followed, the story of the Battle of Earth spread throughout known space like wildfire. The Zephyrian Empire, once the most feared military force in the galaxy, became a cautionary tale. Their survivors spoke in hushed whispers about the humans who had offered them peace and then destroyed them when they chose war instead. Admiral Vexthar's final moments were spent understanding a terrible truth about humanity. Their greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology, though it was impressive. It wasn't their willingness to die for their cause, though that was terrifying. To other species, their greatest weapon was their patience and their ability to prepare. While other species reacted to threats with immediate aggression or quick surrender, humans planned for decades. They studied their enemies, learned their weaknesses, and prepared responses to every possible scenario. When diplomacy failed, they were ready with overwhelming force. As consciousness faded from his dying mind, Vexthar thought about all the worlds his empire had conquered through fear and intimidation. None of those species had been ready for war. They had been surprised, overwhelmed, and defeated before they could organize proper resistance. But humanity had been watching. They had been ready, and when the time came to fight, they had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who offers you peace first. The warning had been real mercy, the last mercy the Zephyrian Empire would ever receive. From humanity. From that day forward, Earth's message was clear to every civilization in the galaxy: approach in peace or don't approach at all.